Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, viewers of my channel. I have been ill for some time for this week and decided to make another video. As we spoke in my poll, I wanted to make more educational videos, as I promised. I have this basically this is lecture on the weak squares, how to play against weak squares. But I've noticed that in every game I looked at, it was all the time that white plays on the light squares, and I think it's easier for you to just to make yourself a note that when you have white pieces, you should pay attention to light squares, try to dominate on them. It's important. And on the opposite, I think that black makes them play on the dark squares. I haven't heard this idea a lot when I watched my share of chess videos. Like no one just talks about it. But I think that grandmasters, they pay a lot of attention to these patterns which lead to to light squares and dark squares, and play a lot with bishops. So what is playing against weak squares? So this is basically when opponent moved his pawns, made a lot of pawn moves, and these diagonals, which we will talk about. Let's say if black plays f6 here, then this diagonal a2 to g8 will be weak, and this will happen later in the game. So how to employ this weak diagonal, for instance? When we have a weak diagonal, we should make sure that there are not pawns which can push away our pieces, and we should firmly have option to place our pieces on this diagonal, and then we employ this. For instance, this diagonal, I don't know, it is very well defended, and I don't think we can employ this unless black plays something like b6. So this is the idea. Alright, so this is a game between Alekhine and Max Euwe from their World Championship match, and Alekhine is playing white. I was thinking that Alekhine is more e4 player, but he wasn't. He played, I think, most of his matches the d4. So this is actually a positional game. When we talk about Alekhine, we know that he is very active and attacking player, but it seems like when he played this World Championship matches, he was playing, I think, more solidly. Alright, sorry for these arrows. So in this position, I think white has some advantage. The engine shows that they have big advantage actually, because they have this, okay, both players have bishops, but white has space advantage. White rook is more active. I think king of white is very safe, and this bishop on f4 is very nice, attacks this knight on e5. So in this position, Alekhine noticed that queen needs to defend this knight here, and so he can have an attack on this on this queen, and if queen moves, then he will win this knight. So the first move is quite easy, it's b4. And black played queen to c7, but if he takes, then it's queen b3, I'm sorry, knight to b3, attacking the queen. And after, as the knight is hanging, is to play queen to c7, then it's queen to e4, attacking two pieces, and eventually white will win a piece. So if you attacked, you don't want to make more pieces hanging, so queen c7 is the best move. And Alekhine starts the offense on the light squares. Yeah, he plays b5. So obviously this pawn here is pinned. He attacks the c6 pawn, and it's very unpleasant for black to defend it because still this knight here is pinned. So c5 is the logical move, and knight to f5. This also, this move here, you know probably that Bamfangold always says knight to f5, knife to f5, I'm sorry, that showing that this like exclamation mark strong move, yeah. So basically one white can place knight to f5 and win, and they play it many times in Ruy Lopez, for instance, for white. Then certainly you just have this idea that white has a better position if you have managed to put your knight there. And it's a light square, of course. In this position, white is threatening, for instance, to take on e7 and pin the knight, play queen to e4. In this position, black played f6. There is a question mark to this move. It's made by the commentator, but actually engine says that this is a very good move, f6, probably the best, because the first line is g5, but I don't recommend this move because it's opening up your king side very strongly, and you're not going to defend it in like 10-15 moves without exchanging queens. Your king will be like forever open for different kind of attacks. So f6 is a good move, defending the knight. And Alekhine played knight to e3. Now he can jump with his knight to d5, as now c5 is not defending d5. So Euwe defended the d5 with bishop to e5. And in this position, actually a lot of winning moves according to the engine, but the pattern move is like shown as the strongest. It's still the first line. So bishop to d5. So when we talked about this, that for instance, we noticed that there are these light squares are weak. So we want to exchange the piece which protects these squares. Yeah, of course we have a queen here, and this bishop cannot like protect all the light squares, but we should just try to get rid of this, and then this squares will remain undefended, and we can use it for our pieces, for maneuvering to d5, the knight to give check with the queen, and create all sorts of tactical play. All right, so as you see that the bishop is pinned, so he exchanged it, and he took with the rook. Yeah, so of course he combines all the threats. He wants to use this spin on the knight, and he has this other square for his knight on e3, and basically white is winning. Yeah, so the material is equal, but white has a really big advantage. So let's see how the game ended. Queen a5 removed from the pin, giving away this pawn on e5, but he didn't take it. He played knight to f5 first, check, takes, and rook to e7. Notice that all white's pieces are on the light squares. Yeah, when we have exchanged the light square bishop, then we can, employ these squares for our benefit. Bishop f6 and knight to f6. If we take this knight, then it's queen takes h7, checkmate. So this is the only move. And queen takes c5 is black resigned, because too many pieces like attacking the king. If we play something like here, then it's okay, it's mate in 2 takes, and if we play here, then queen to d5, and with this knight to f6 idea, white is winning. All right, let's go to the second game. This is a game between Gideon Stahlberg and unknown to me Wade Robert Graham. I think not so strong player. And Stahlberg has been, he's a decent player from Sweden, grandmaster. So white is playing, white has this position, I think very standard for d4 player. They have this d5, taking a lot of space for his pieces, so they can maneuver. They chose to play bishop f1, like always play bishop f1, and they're ready for opening up the game. And h3 is, I think, the right move, because you don't want, when you have the space advantage in the center, you don't want to exchange more pieces. Yeah, so black has less space, and they have problems with maneuvering. Yeah, and if they manage to play bishop to g4, then they will exchange the bishop for this knight, and I think black will be a little bit less in danger. Yeah, so h3 is a nice move. So knight f8, g3. I wouldn't make this move, but he kind of wants to play bishop g2, and maybe provoke some play from black, and black plays g5. g5 is obviously to have this knight to g6 option. Yeah, and when you have problems with space, you just need to put your pieces so they don't mix in the middle. So we notice here our pattern, yeah, that this pawn moved forward, and it now doesn't control this light square on f5, which somehow is always the idea of white, to occupy the square and create a lot of threats. So in this position, what move do you think the white played? White played a very logical move, h4. This is to open up the king side and try to exchange this bishop on c8. So knight to h7. I think that I'd play g4 because in these positions, often that you want to like close the game with this kind of maneuvers. So knight to h2, attacking the pawn, and h5. This is like, I think, more standard, and white would have to play f3 at some point to open up this this defense. All right, so knight to h7, takes, and knight to h2. So as I said earlier, we see that now after g5, h5 square is not defended, and f5 square is free. So normally we just leave this bishop on f1, which kind of is in play, but it's actually a little bit wrong. Yeah, I mean that this c8 bishop does a lot to protect these light squares everywhere, and if we exchange it, then we will get this f5 and h5 squares undefended. So queen f6 and bishop to e2, preparing, playing to bishop to g4, h6, black restricted. This exchange, knight f3, preparing king to g2 and rook to h1. So basically white have won the battle, yeah, already. They strategically control the board, and they only need some precise moves to finish the game. Exchange, queen b3. I'd play, I think, b3 better, but that's what he decided to do. Knight to h4, very nice move, using the spin, and putting knight to f5. Bishop e7, rook h1, and from b3, queen will quickly get to the queen side. Queen d1, and just a final combination, takes, and in this position black resigned because of this rook to h1, queen. This is totally winning. So takes, and queen to h5. All right, so just for this is very important to make this critical move after g5, h4. Yeah, this is the first idea to undermine that this pawn here is weak. And the second important idea, when you see that black moved the pawn in front of, like left some weak squares, so you start to think how to exchange the light square bishop. Yeah, to exchange the bishop of the color which black which like in this position protects this weak squares. Yeah, so this time this is light square bishop. All right, let's go further. This is a game between Vladimir Bagarov and a French player, Loac. So Bagarov has been Kasparov's coach. He's also from Baku as Kasparov. And later he moved to Riga and was a TAL coach for like 10-15 years, I guess. He was extremely solid player. He barely lost a game in a year to a very strong player. He played very solid chess. he played all the time the d4. I think this strategical positional players, well, it's obvious, yeah, when you say positional, that they understand these patterns really well. I'm consider myself more tactical player, and sometimes I struggle when I need to find a positional move, which happens in many times. So this is actually a very standard play for white. They have very nice position, and I play with black lots of these positions, more with g6, I think. I think most of you would play a3 and just keep the game like it is like right now, but Bagirov made a very nice move here. He found how to open up the game and take the light squares. So he plays c5. Very nice move. He wants to open up this bishop, and he wants to he calculated that the position of black in the center will be under attack after the exchanges. So so let's see what options black have. If they take with this pawn, then white will not recapture with this pawn because knight will take and black is better, but they will take this way, and after d5, knight a4. So you see that these pawns are terrible. This pawn is attacked, this bishop is great, and just strategically white is totally controlling the game. So they played pawn takes c5, and he played pawn takes e5. So again, you see that we clear the center, and white has a better development, and even if they lose like a pawn in the center, it doesn't really matter, because this open in the center and these two bishops, they will give white full compensation. Knight d5. So let's take the takes and knight to d5 with the attack on the queen. Queen goes to e7, and in this position knight to c7. If queen goes to b8, then it's knight takes b6, and again we see this pawns, just pawn structure is totally ruined. All right, so that's why Mr. Loak played knight to d5. He didn't capture this pawn, and knight to e4. Very standard in every position in queens, different queens games. E4 is used for white to maneuver its pieces. Yeah. I think Ben Fangold was saying this in his lectures, that he wants just he doesn't want to play e4 normally. He wants to keep this square for his pieces, and Kramnik said so as well in his lectures. Rook to d8, knight to d6. Again, speculating on this opening this bishop, and also if queen takes the pawn on d6, then e4 will utilize this pin on d file. So he played back, and knight to f5, which is we see in almost all games. And this could be a threat. e4 is a threat because bishop is defended by the knight. So he goes back. A3, just to make sure that knight cannot jump to b4 with attack the queen. Go backs, and e6. That's an easy move. Double attack on the king, on the knight, and on g7, and in this position black have resigned. All right, this is I think it gives you some idea what we're playing for, and just make sure that you're trying to exchange the piece which protects the weak squares of your opponent. This is, I think, the idea. All right, thank you very much, and see you next time.